Sylvester Stallone is more than a movie star. He is a symbol of survival. For nearly 5 decades, his name has stood for grit, resilience, and the refusal to surrender even when the world seems determined to break you. Through characters like Rocky Balboa and John Rambo, he gave the world heroes who endured punishment, yet refused to be defeated. But the real story behind the cinematic triumphs is far harsher. Stallone's life was not shaped by instant fame or effortless success. It was forged through rejection, humiliation, financial ruin, and devastating personal loss. His true legacy is not simply victory, but survival. His journey proves that strength is not perfection, it is persistence through pain. What follows is not a biography of a celebrity, but a portrait of a man who refused to quit. A birth marked by damage. Stallone's first battle began before he could even speak. Born on July 6, 1946 in New York City, his delivery was complicated by forceps, which severed a nerve and caused permanent paralysis on the left side of his face. His lip drooped, his speech slurred, and his expressions carried an asymmetry that would later define him. What could have been a minor medical incident became a lifelong physical signature. From infancy, he carried visible difference. That injury shaped not only how others perceived him, but how he perceived himself. Before he understood rejection, he was already living inside it. While many children learn to speak and smile freely, Stallone learned early that the world could be cruel to anyone who looked or sounded different. That early humiliation became the fuel for a lifetime of determination. A childhood without shelter. His home offered little comfort or safety. His father, Frank Stallone Sr., was volatile and distant, while his mother, Jackie, was ambitious and eccentric, often focused more on her own pursuits than nurturing her son. Their marriage was turbulent, filled with arguments and instability. By age 5, Stallone's parents divorced, leaving him shuffled between households and boarding schools. He later admitted he felt unwanted, like an inconvenience rather than a child. Emotional neglect became part of his foundation. The insecurity he experienced in those early years would follow him into adulthood, fueling both his drive and his self-doubt. Even as he grew into a man with dreams, the haunting sensation of being unloved never fully left him. It was the kind of pain that can either break you or turn you into someone who refuses to be broken again. Mockery and isolation at school was no refuge. Children mocked his slurred speech and uneven smile. Teachers underestimated him, mistaking speech impairment for intellectual limitation. Labeled difficult and slow, he grew frustrated and angry. Fighting became his language when words failed him. By his teenage years, he had been expelled from multiple schools. Rage simmered beneath the surface, born not from arrogance but humiliation. He struggled to find belonging, and the world seemed determined to remind him he didn't fit. At 16, he was sent to a school in Switzerland, where isolation deepened into depression. For a time, he felt invisible, convinced the world had no place for him. Yet even in those darkest moments, the ember of defiance remained. He began to understand that if the world would not accept him, he would have to accept himself, choosing a dream against the odds. Despite academic struggles, Stallone discovered a spark in acting. Performance offered transformation, a space where vulnerability could become strength. After returning to the United States, he enrolled in drama programs and pursued theater, clinging to the unlikely dream of becoming an actor. Hollywood, however, was unforgiving. Casting directors dismissed him instantly. His face was unconventional. His speech was unclear. He was told repeatedly that he lacked the qualities of a leading man. Still, he persisted. Acting was not merely ambition, it was survival. It was proof that the boy once mocked could redefine himself. Every rejection became a reason to try harder. Every insult became proof that he was on the right path. If he could not be accepted for who he was, he would create a new identity. one that refused to be dismissed. Poverty and rock bottom. The early 1970s were brutal. Stallone lived in near poverty, taking odd jobs to survive. He cleaned lion cages at the Central Park Zoo and worked as a theater usher. At one point, he slept in a bus station because he could not afford rent. Desperation pushed him into a small role in an adult film for quick cash, a decision he later regretted but accepted as necessary. His lowest moment came when he sold his beloved dog, Bootkus, for $50 because he could not afford food. Hunger humbles pride. Yet even then, Stallone did not surrender. He understood that survival sometimes requires choices you never imagined you would make. The world had stripped him of dignity, but it could not strip him of his will to keep going. Inspiration strikes. The birth of Rocky. Everything changed in March 1975 when Stallone watched a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. Wepner, an underdog with little chance of winning, lasted 15 rounds against the champion. Though he lost, his endurance inspired Stallone profoundly. He saw himself in that battered fighter. Over 3 days, he wrote the screenplay for Rocky, pouring every rejection, insult, and disappointment into its pages. The story of a small-time boxer given one unlikely opportunity mirrored his own life. The script was raw, personal, and honest. It was more than a screenplay, it was hope. For the first time, he saw a path forward, one that did not require him to change who he was, but to embrace it. The refusal that changed everything. Studios quickly recognized the script's potential and offered substantial sums to buy it. However, they refused to cast Stallone as the lead. Established actors were suggested instead. For a struggling writer living in poverty, the offers, reportedly reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars, were life-changing. Yet Stallone refused. He insisted that if Rocky were made, he had to play Rocky Balboa. He believed authenticity mattered more than security. Eventually, the studio agreed, though with a modest budget and reduced payment. It was a gamble that could have destroyed him. Instead, it defined him. The decision was not just artistic, it was existential. He refused to sell his story to anyone else. He refused to let his voice be replaced, and in doing so, he carved a place for himself in a world that had spent years trying to erase him. A cultural explosion released in 1976, Rocky became an unexpected phenomenon. Audiences connected deeply with its underdog spirit. The film grossed over $200 million worldwide and won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Stallone received nominations for Best Actor and Best Original Screenplay. Overnight, he transformed from dismissed outsider to global icon. The man once told his face did not work now stood among Hollywood's elite. Rocky was not merely entertainment. It was a reflection of perseverance. Stallone's life and art merged into a singular narrative of belief overcoming doubt. He had created a hero who could take punishment and still rise, just like he had. The world finally recognized what he had always known, that courage is not born from perfection, but from survival. Reclaiming the fighter within. Rather than surrender, Stallone returned to the character that had once saved him. In 2006, he wrote and directed Rocky Balboa, portraying an aging fighter confronting doubt and mortality. The film resonated with audiences and critics alike. It was introspective, humble, and honest. Stallone acknowledged aging rather than denying it. He also revived Rambo in a grittier installment that reminded viewers of his enduring intensity. These projects marked not just professional resurgence, but personal affirmation. He proved that comebacks are possible, even when the spotlight has dimmed. He showed that survival is not just about staying alive. It's about refusing to let the world define you after it has tried to erase you. The unthinkable loss. In 2012, tragedy struck when Stallone's eldest son, Sage, died at age 36 from heart disease. The loss devastated him, No fame or accomplishment could shield a father from such grief. Stallone withdrew from public attention, processing pain privately. He later described losing a child as an enduring sorrow that never fully heals. The tragedy reshaped him, deepening his performances and perspective. When he portrayed Rocky battling illness in Creed, audiences sensed authenticity. The vulnerability on screen reflected lived experience. His Oscar nomination for the role affirmed both talent and resilience. Pain, it seemed, had become a source of artistic truth, yet it also reminded him that survival does not mean escape. It means continuing to live, even when the heart has been broken. Endurance as legacy today, Stallone remains active in film and television, adapting to new platforms and audiences. Projects like Tulsa King demonstrate his willingness to evolve. He continues to train, write, and mentor, carrying decades of lessons into each endeavor. Beyond wealth or awards, his enduring legacy is persistence. From a paralyzed infant dismissed as flawed to an international icon, his journey defies easy categorization. He was not handed opportunity. He carved it through refusal to quit. His life reminds us that strength is not perfection, it is persistence through pain. Every setback, every humiliation, every loss became another reason to rise. And that is the real story behind the legend. Conclusion: the real victory, Sylvester Stallone's story, transcends cinema. Rocky Balboa may be fictional, but the spirit behind him is undeniably real. Stallone faced physical impairment, childhood neglect, professional rejection, public humiliation, and profound personal loss. Yet he chose to stand up each time life knocked him down. His triumph lies not in box office numbers or trophies, but in endurance. He embodies the principle that falling is inevitable, but staying down is optional. In the end, his greatest role was not Rocky or Rambo, it was himself. A man who refused to surrender, even when the world tried to convince him he was already defeated.